Yeah. All right, awesome. Good morning, everybody. And morning, yay. Welcome to the Metro East Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Greetings to everybody who is watching also this service remotely. So everybody say hello. Hi. So make sure everybody knows that they're welcome. This is a welcoming religious community, and we're very glad that you are here. I am Robin Berkeley. My pronouns are she, her. I have been a member of this congregation since 2010, a former church board member, and I'm also now the current worship coordinator. The MEUUC is located in Glen Carbon, Illinois, spiritually led by our ministerial fellow, Eden Johnson, who just happened to walk in right on cue. We gratefully share a sacred space with the Edwardsville Masonic Lodge. As you can see up there, our mission drives us to live our values. We are outward reaching, inward seeking. We are creating and nurturing an intentional community that values acceptance, social justice, and the embodiment of UU principles. Come, let us question together. I'm so glad that you are here, whether you are in the sanctuary or online, viewing now or later on. We welcome everyone to this home of comfort, spirit, justice, and hope. We are Unitarian Universalists. So take a moment now to say hello to everybody, particularly somebody that you have not met yet and meeting for the first time. So, you missed choir practice. Yeah. We made it. Morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. Welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be back. Sort of. Glad to be back here. All right. So we open our service with a prelude from our accompanist, Joy. As Haley comes up to light the chalice, I want to share that lighting of the chalice is an important ritual in the Unitarian Universalist faith. We have many different interpretations of the flaming chalice, including the light of reason.
There's nothing here.
You're absolutely correct. There is nothing. Hold on.
Yeah, where is it?
There you go.
Thank you.
Just don't light my hands.
As if I would.
I know. There we go. Yay, we got it. All right. So our interpretations are, besides the humor attached to it, the light of reason, the warmth of community, and the flame of hope. If you're watching elsewhere and have a chalice or candle, please light it now as we join in saying the unison words projected on the screen. We hallow this time together by kindling the lamp of our heritage. Our opening prayer is a poem by Robert Longley. It's called Lessons of the Past. Whispers migrate through the halls, responding to forgotten calls. It seems that man has come so far, yet forgotten how to reach the stars. In days now past and years before, you have a glimpse of what's in store. Though nothing is as it will be, most of man must wait and see. Some can see those things today. It's they who soon will lead the way to take man down a different path, to flee the course of heaven's wrath. The light of sound's return is soon to charge the halls of sun and moon, to teach the lessons of the past, that man may reach the stars at last. So we're going to go for it with the first song that we practiced, the very first one. There is a time for recalling the past. Yeah, this is not in any books. This is up here. Those last two lines are a little rough, but we'll get there. We'll get there. You all did well. Thank you for practicing before. So our UU principals, obviously, every time I come up here and it's like, yeah, that one works. Well, all of them work. But obviously we want to highlight the ones that matter most closely and tightly. And transformation was one and equity was the other, because the transformations kind of going on right now are not always about equity, certainly here in the United States at this time, in contrast to where I just came from, Amsterdam, that had rainbow flags everywhere. So rainbow flags everywhere. And so that society is working on transforming, right, its history in a good way. So I'm excited to be able to share a little bit of my journey and sort of the exploration that I had as I was wandering around with my friend, and I'm like, God, I'm just feeling compelled to, I'm like, I have a sermon I have to do, and she goes, well, I'll talk about this and talk about that. I'm like, perfect. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But transformation and equity both. We are in a state of transformation, and I'll remember a few years ago when, if you got into sort of Buddhist or Hindu Eastern philosophy, when Barack Obama got elected, a lot of people were saying, oh, we're entering the second age of mankind, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, that sounds promising. But as I think about it, we might still be. We're still in that regression phase before I think we move forward. That's my hope. That's my prayer. I lift it up. Whatever it takes. Amen on that. So let's hope that it is actually true and that we're figuring out how to get past this backlash and move forward as a society, which the rest of the world is doing, just not us. All right. With that, let's talk about joys and sorrows. As part of our weekly worship service, we take time for expressions of joys, concerns, and sorrows. This is a place where we can each share the things that weigh down our souls or that fill us up with joy, and where those we love surround us in good times and in turmoil. If you'd like to recognize a joy, sorrow, or milestone, you can come forward and place a stone or several stones, if need be, in the water bowl to represent your joys and sorrows. There are stones in the front here. Come forward on my left, place your stone in the water, and then as a symbol of what you carry in your heart, and then proceed back to your chair here to my right. So please let us be in a spirit of prayer and quiet meditation. Please come and join me. the joys that it has for us and for all the sorrows and pain. Okay, our story for all ages is, what is history and what makes history so important? I mean, my ex-husband's a historian, my daughter's a historian. I'm surrounded. I love history, but I didn't love the history when we were growing up. Memorize this date and this thing and who was in this battle. But I came to appreciate history as I went to college and learned about the things that make it challenging, that two ideas can be held at the same time that are opposing, like this was a good thing and then a not so good thing for various reasons. And so that's when I started to really appreciate history. So let's start with talking about history, why it's important, and then we'll go into the rest of the readings. So.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like if we didn't keep the record of history? Imagine that you wake up one day and realize that you have no memory of the past. You don't know when you were born or where you came from. You don't know anything about your family. You don't remember a single thing that you used to like. How would you feel if you had no recollection of the past? History is not just about the epic events that had happened in the past. Your birthday, your first day of school, first time you rode a bike, it's also a part of history, your history. Everything with a past has a history. Life on Earth, people, art, countries, and even ice cream. So what's the difference between a historical event and a tale? History is the study of past events supported by evidence. It means that for a story to be considered as a historical event, we need to know when and where it occurred, as well as a record proving that it has occurred. It feels like we don't spend a single minute that is not recorded today. However, things weren't always like that in the past. Photos, artifacts, engravings, and letters from the past are all records of history. Do you think this boy took this photo to celebrate the day he received his first bike in 1921? How old do you think he was in this photo? Is it possible that he was as old as you today? What does a historian do? A good historian tracks down clues about the past events like a detective. Then he tries to reveal what exactly has happened in the past by understanding the cause and effect relationship between the information and the records he collected. History gives us information about who we are and where we come from. History also inspires us as to what kind of a person we want to be. Human history might be full of injustices and wars, but it's also full of great examples about courage and virtue. History gives us a perspective on what is important in life. For example, when the world was in ruins after World War II, the countries established the United Nations with the aim of resolving conflicts peacefully instead of going to war. Being able to understand historical events might also prevent us from making similar mistakes. Knowing about the past helps us analyze the events happening today. It also allows us to make assumptions about future. For example, many of the precautions taken during COVID-19 epidemic were based on the past lessons learned from other epidemics, including the Great Spanish Flu in 1918. Events in history cannot be studied by establishing the same conditions like designing an experiment in a lab. So we need the support of other scientific disciplines in order to fully understand what has happened in the past. There are many scientific disciplines that help us understand history. However, 3 of these are the most important as they help us differentiate historical events from tales right away. We need a scientific discipline to help us understand when the event has occurred. Chronology is the science of arranging events in their order of occurrence in time. We need a scientific discipline to help us understand where the event has occurred. Geography is the study of places and relationship between people and their environments. We also need a scientific discipline to help us collect and examine evidence. Archaeology is the study of material remains, stuff people have left behind in history. With the help of these disciplines, we can understand the conditions under which the historical events took place and learn what has happened in the past, even if we weren't there to see it. History is the study of past events supported by evidence. History gives us information about who we are, where we come from, and what kind of a person we would like to be in future. History gives us a perspective on what is important in life. If you like this video, click below to subscribe to our channel. And
Thank you. Our next hymn is number 212 in the gray hymnal, We Are Dancing Sarah's Circle. And I don't know this one, so can't help you. We know the tune? Okay. All right. That's good. Awesome. So our reading today is called Studying History Should Make You Uncomfortable by Miriam Ayyad. And I picked this because so much of what we're hearing today is, oh, we don't want our people to feel uncomfortable. Well, it's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. So this was in June 2023, an essay written by Miriam Ayyad in Medium, so if anybody's interested. The teaching of history has gone through many attempts at being regulated by state legislatures, and the most confusing and unsettling is the attempt to ensure that our students do not experience feelings of discomfort. This is based on the presumption that teachers have the power to manipulate the emotions of their students and a responsibility to make it so that they're cushioned from the horrors of the past. And how many teachers are in this room? And we all know that is not possible. So we can't even get them to read the syllabus, let alone anything else, right? So this discourse raises the question of what, if anything, is wrong with such an emotional response when studying history. A broad, deep emotional response should be expected when studying history. Learning about different events and times should give students the opportunity to recognize their privileges, their place in society, and the context behind why the world is the way it is. It should equip them to move through the world with empathy. A learner of history shouldn't be indifferent nor sheltered from the tragedies of human history, as these tragedies often continue to impact the present in tangible ways. Obviously, not everything is hunky-dory. The history should not be presented as such. However, it's not all black and white either. There are many complicated shades of gray to navigate. Emphasizing some details while de-emphasizing others can present a biased point of view. the individual biases that everyone may also cause an additional lens that may or may not cloud learning abilities. The way history is taught, does it make students think in binary ways? Do students think things or people are either good or bad? Surely the role of major figures can be evaluated in the context of each of the main events they were involved in. For example, when it comes to Winston Churchill, he played both a crucial and unique role in the defeat of the Nazis in Europe and was an unrelenting imperialist and racist mass murderer in his policies toward India and Bangladesh. Historical figures should surely be evaluated by their actions and resulting outcomes rather than determining a one-dimensional villain or hero binary. It's also important to note that history is often used to paint events in a certain light, to present the U.S. as a positive democratic force without recognizing that it was a nation founded on genocide, slavery, and imperial policies that continue to cause harm worldwide, and would be a disservice to the victims, the field of history, and the students themselves. These uncomfortable moments allow the distance between the past and present to shrink. We can begin to see ourselves in the place of the historical actors we study. Students can then think about the possibility that they would have acted similarly in that particular place and at that particular time. Studying history should force us to step outside ourselves, out of the present moment, to look at the world through the eyes of other people who came before us, to the extent the historical record allows. What conclusions and connections students come to depends on the variety of factors, but if a broad range of emotions are brought out, including feelings of discomfort, then students are on the right track. In my own research and study of history, I've often had this experience, and I like to think that it has made me a better historian as a result. All right, so we'll move on to our first slide. Thank you, and I'll signal you, Alex, when I want you to change. Thank you. So I have a bunch of slides and pictures from my trip, so taking us through our little story. I don't have all of them up there, and I only have the ones from Amsterdam, unfortunately, but we'll kind of go from there. So I love traveling. That should be no surprise to anybody. And this summer, I decided to take advantage of a conference, the annual conference that I had that was in Denmark, in Copenhagen, to expand my trip to a part of the country. As I was talking with Pete this morning, I'm not sure that would have been top on my list to go to. Like to go to Scandinavia. It's kind of like Scandinavia's lovely. I can go to IKEA and eat my meatballs, and I'm okay with that, right? It's like why would I want to go? And I'm like, you know what? I'm here. Let's figure it out, right? Because it wasn't high on my list initially, and honestly, I figured, it's a part of Europe I haven't traveled to, but there's a lot of Europe I haven't traveled to, so there's that as well. I mean, I pretty much have been to Spain, Portugal, and a little bit of Switzerland. So obviously there's a lot of ground to still cover. But as I was wandering, I was thinking about that saying from George Santayana, who is an American philosopher: those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And this was something that really struck with me as I worked my way through Amsterdam and even two parts of Copenhagen. Norway, not as much, because we were pretty much in there to do our fjord tour, and that was that. But we started in Amsterdam. We went to the Van Gogh Museum. We went to this place called Zaanse, which is the old windmills, and you'll see pictures from it in a second. Volendam, which is on the water. Marken Island, canal tours, even the red light district, which we won't talk about. But, you had to see it, right? And the Jewish Museum, largely because we could not get tickets to go to the Anne Frank house, and my friend Karen and I, who she's Jewish, wanted to go and see and learn a little bit about that history and understand that better. So after we left Amsterdam, we went to Norway for a quick 48 hours and a fjord tour. We left like late on Tuesday night, and we landed at 11:30, and it was bright daylight because we were 300 miles south of the Arctic Circle. So it was pretty cool, and I appreciated that. And it was exquisite. I cannot wait to go back to Norway. I will absolutely do that anytime. Anybody wants to go, just let me know. I'll be with you. I'll take your luggage and everything. After we left that, my friend, who I have traveled with a couple of times, she lives in Seville, Spain. I saw her last summer, and then a couple years ago when I did my trip to Spain, and we've traveled really well together. Literally, you need to have a companion that you can travel with for a week and laugh the entire time, which we did. And it was an amazing trip for me from that perspective. But she went back to Spain, I went to Copenhagen, and I was singing the Danny Kaye song, wonderful, wonderful, so because I love Hans Christian Andersen and Danny Kaye. So what I want to do first is just take you through a couple of fun photos before I get into the meat of the heavy stuff. So if you want to go to the next slide. So there's Karen on the left and me on the right. This is actually Volendam. We're on a ferry that left Volendam to go to Marken Island, which is where they had the wooden shoe factory, which you'll see in a few seconds. So we started in Zonstersons, which is on the right, which is where the windmills are, and there's lots of dikes and water and lots of beautiful, rich soil. And it was an amazing experience to just see that. I mean, my great-grandmother is Dutch, so the whole idea of windmills and things was really amazing. In Volendam, we had a lovely lunch, and then we went to a cheese factory there, so learned how they make Edam cheese and a bunch of other things, and it was really wonderful. Okay, next slide. So here's the wooden shoe factory, which is in Marken Island, and I had no idea how they made them, and it was really cool. So they have, it's like a parallel system. So they have, as a molded wooden shoe is in there, it has like a lathe of some sort that just models whatever the shape is of the model, and then it bores it out in a separate machine that bores out, where you put your feet into. And we asked ourselves, like, why do people wear wooden shoes? Well, because it's a wet country, and that worked, right? So you can keep your feet clean and dry and work your way through. So yes, wooden shoes were beautiful. I could not justify buying a pair, but you never know. Maybe I'll go back and buy another pair. So we'll see. All right, so we left there, and there's the shoes. Yeah, that's actually for. That was our first day. Apparently there had been there were like big shoes somewhere in Amsterdam, which we could not find. But we did find the smaller shoes, and so both of us got our pictures, standing in the giant wooden shoes. And then as you can see on the right-hand side, that's the canal system there. If you've not been to Amsterdam, this takes your breath away. I mean, it really is beautiful. The canals are all over the area. We decided to go on a canal tour. Next slide, Alex. And so this is at night. I mean, you just walk along the bridges and everything all over the place, and it just takes your breath away. And I am so glad that I got a chance to do that. And I like this idea of understanding the canal system because the Dutch have reclaimed the land from the sea. In fact, if you didn't know this, the airport in Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam is below sea level. But they have created such an elaborate and successful dam system, a dike system throughout the country that it's been they can reclaim in territory and kind of grow from there. And it's rich soil. And then also this notion of the water, it's like there's this rich history of seafaring, that obviously the Dutch have been engaged in. I'm sure many of you are already thinking about that, which I will get into in a few seconds. So next slide. So again, more canals, and your eyes are not messing with you. That is crooked. They're like, the buildings are crooked because, like Venice, much of Amsterdam was built on pilings, and trying to keep, the land up and reclaim the land from the water, and so they've had to adapt to the sinking of some parts of that, and they've done that successfully, where they've anchored those tilted houses quite readily. And if you see at the very top of the second to last, the second one from the left, there's this little thing sticking out. The houses not only can tilt on occasion, but they also lean forward. Why? Because it's narrow. There's narrow buildings with very narrow staircases. And they say, well, the only way we're going to get furniture up there is through a crank system, but the building has to lean forward, otherwise you're going to destroy all your windows in your building. So they have a elaborate system on almost every building that's in that old area that are sort of the narrow, tall buildings that are like that. So if you want to go to the next slide. And you can, again, see more of the crooked stuff. And you can kind of see that gray one on the far right. You can see where that tilt forward comes from, right? And I thought this was really cool because you think about, the history, right, of making peace with our environment and trying to navigate it, not dominate it, but manage it, right? I mean, we think about dominance of nature and how important it is to live in harmony with nature, and that's kind of what they tried to do. Is they still have all these elaborate waterways, and I don't know, Peg. I know you guys went on a canal tour when you went. Did your tour guide take a scoop of the water and drink it? Oh. It's considered some of the cleanest water in Europe. He literally scooped it and drank the whole glass down. And I went like, okay.
When I was there in 75, he slept in
Oh, the boats.
on the boats
Yeah.
and pooped in the hole in the back.
Right, but it didn't go into the water. They have a very elaborate sewer system. Like
Then it went into the water.
oh, okay. Well, not so much now. They have cleaned it up. But like the boats that are in the canal now that people say, man, how many watched Ted Lasso? Okay, so you know the scene where in one of the last season where she almost gets hit by a bike, which I almost did several times because you have to look both ways with the bicyclists. The character, the beautiful blonde woman who I adore, and she's going to be my next wife, I know. She falls in love and sort of has a one-night affair with a man who lives on a boat, and they took us actually past the boat, which was kind of cool. So anyway, what I like about the idea, though, is just that, like Venice, right? They have tried very hard to, figure out how to live in harmony with the ocean and with the water. And they even have some bodies of water that at one time were salt water and are now fresh water because they've worked very hard to desalinate and to pump in fresh water. And so now the fresh water build in that area is quite lovely. So let's go to the next slide. All right, so this is where it gets a little heavier, folks. Karen and I decided that, we wanted to explore, obviously, the Jewish Museum because we couldn't see the Anne Frank Museum. And we were asking ourselves at one point, I'm like, do you think were the Dutch involved in the slave trade? And I thought, I'm pretty sure that they were, and in fact, that is true. They were absolutely involved in the slave trade. And if you think back, sugarcane and the spices and the Dutch East Indies, history that we've learned about, and that's all complicit in the triangle, if you will, of the slave trade. And if you forget that, if you've ever watched 1776 and heard John Collins sing "Molasses to Rum to Slaves," which to this day still gives me goosebumps, it tells you how intricate that system was, and that no one was innocent. They all played a role. If you drank the rum, you were complicit in it in some level or another. So we asked our tour guide when we went on the canal tour, tell us what you know about the history. And he was appalled. As a young 20-something-year-old guy, he's like, yes, we were so involved in that slave trade, and we know that it was wrong, and we are working hard to remedy. Like he had wonderful things to say about what they're trying to do to take those lessons learned from the past and do better, right? The Dutch are not afraid to teach that history. The Dutch teach it in their schools, and it is present, ever present certainly throughout Amsterdam. I didn't really leave Amsterdam other than Volendam and Marken Island, but I'm sure, it's a small country, so I'm sure that it's spread out all over the place. Now, we used to not be afraid to teach that history, but what we're seeing is this slide away from teaching history and more like fantasy in our schools these days, or at least in some schools. Obviously, I would hope not here, but it's an issue. So the monument on the left, it's called the National Monument on Dam Square, and it's dedicated, as I read up on this, it was dedicated to those who died in World War II and beyond. And so I had some close-up images, but obviously I didn't want to have too many of them up here for space sake. But if you notice, there's the thing at the top, then the person sort of like this in the middle, and then to the left of that, you see around the feet the chains. And of course, yes, this makes perfect sense. It aligns with what we know about the Holocaust and people being chained and treated inhumanely. But then I was looking at it, and some of the facial features, they looked African to me. Now, maybe I'm wrong. But I think part of it's not just about honoring the dead from that time and forward, any world war and death and tragedies that have happened. But I was thinking way back to, maybe subtly, they're making peace with their role in that slave trade. And I was really impressed with that. And, you know, there's a fraught history and a fraught relationship between, you know, the Netherlands and its pre-war and post-World War II history, and they wrestle with it in the museum, the Jewish Museum. You know, for every wonderful story we hear about people who, you know, hid Anne Frank's family and did all the good things, there were just as many people who did not do that and sent people off to internment camps, who ultimately went to the death camps in Germany and Poland and in those areas. So the Netherlands is really no different than any other country that had to struggle with their relationship with the Jewish people, how to make sense of how they've marginalized them and isolated them and were complicit in harm to them. And as I said, we didn't make the Anne Frank house, but that Jewish museum was important to us. And of course, that is a picture from the Jewish Museum and the yellow Star of David that they had to wear on their clothes. And they had to have a couple of them because, you know, it had to be taken off one outfit and put it on another, depending on how things were getting cleaned. So they were always pinned up on them. But post-war, Netherlands also struggled, because how do you make sense of the fact that half the people, right, were okay with Nazi behaviors and half the people were not? Kind of how many of us I know feel today, like half the people voted for somebody who was a Nazi and half the people didn't. And how do we make sense of that? And I mean that with all seriousness. I mean, I try to make light of it, but it's powerful. So the museum sort of starts with the post Spanish Inquisition and the fleeing of Sephardi Jews to the Netherlands and other areas of Europe to be able to experience, you know, freedom and away from the Inquisition and the pain and suffering that happened there. All right, so let's go to the next slide. They have worked very hard to make peace again with their role in this, and they don't want to forget. These squares, about so big, are everywhere. Like, you walk down the street, they can be like in front of this building, the next building, next building, next building, and they're all, if you can read it, it starts with the name, when they were born, when they were interned, if they were interned, like they were interned, many people in Westerbork, which is part of the Netherlands, and that was the transition point to move to Germany. So if they were interned, if they were then deported, where they deported from, Westerbork, and then when they died, and where they died, Auschwitz, Sobibor, Buchenwald, so all of that. And the one on the left was, it sort of leapt out at me because my great-grandmother's last name was De Vries, and so I saw that, and it just kind of made me gasp for a moment. And then I know somebody named De Groot at SIUE, Josie De Groot, and so just thinking about that. But these are everywhere. So it's this constant reminder for everybody, right, that there was some bad things that happened, and we don't want to forget. And I can't imagine if these sorts of things were here in the United States, how quickly they would be covered or dug up and disappeared. So let's go to the next one. So this was the last, one of the last pieces that I saw, and it was real. And at first you're like, oh, what is it? It's like death. And I'm like, yeah. But when you go in and you look at the individual names, Goring, hanged, like, I don't know, let's see if I can read the names here. Frank to hang, Frick to hang, Funk got life in prison. This was the reconciliation, the redemption, that these people that created pain and harm to folks, they were punished. You know, they weren't pardoned. They were punished, you know, and I, you know, you can imagine the trauma in doing that piece of art and the cathartic release that it may have brought to that person, whoever did that piece of art. So the Dutch really don't seem to be afraid to address that negative past history, the slave trade, the Holocaust, the rejection of the Jews. They're not afraid to look at it because they understand that you cannot move forward as a country to be what it strives to be until you make peace with what you have done and ask for the change, to apologize and to move forward. So politically, this is sort of tough too, because some people really do have a hard time with people who may have made errors in the past, but they're trying to make amends. And often people are like, cancel culture, right? I mean, hate to use that word, but this is what we hear. It's like, nope, you did one bad thing, you are gone from me. Like, I don't want to know you, I don't want to know anything about you. And it's like, where do we have space for redemption? Where do we have space for forgiveness and people trying to remedy their past wrongs? And if we don't do that, how do we move forward? We become again this bifurcated society, and that becomes problematic. And many of you know I'm a Substack addict. I just replaced Facebook with Substack, not in the same way, but Substack. There's a lot of folks that are on Substack that I like to listen to, and people that are a little controversial. Joe Walsh, Michael Cohen, Lev Parnas. Now these should be familiar names to you because these are all people that were involved in Trump 1. And they all recognize that what happened and what has happened since is wrong. They themselves were abused by Trump, and they are trying to educate us to learn more. Now, a lot of people are like, Joe Walsh, he's just an opportunist. He was may remember him, he was a Tea Party Republican from Illinois who recently joined the Democratic Party because he said, this is not going to work. There has to be space for the guy who's running for mayor of New York City, who is a socialist on the one extreme, and me, who's a middle-of-the-road Republican who believes in gun rights, right? That the Democratic Party, in order to keep democracy, has to be big. So there are a lot of folks that are refusing to embrace him in the role that all of these folks can play in healing and getting better and doing the things we need to do. So we have to learn from the past, folks. I know this has been a little bit of a long sermon, but I wanted to show the pictures too. We have to accept that we're not perfect, that we're going to make mistakes. And if we make mistakes, wouldn't we want someone to forgive us? Wouldn't we want to feel like someone has faith in us again? Now, we know trust lost takes a long time to rebuild trust. I get that, right? So when we've disappointed people, it takes a while to reclaim that sense of forgiveness and trust again. And this is stuff I teach in organizational studies, and it's the same thing with interpersonally as we go on. We have to recognize that everybody's on a different journey, that not everybody's on the same path at the same level of development, the same ideas about what works and what doesn't work. Some of us get there a little faster than others, but we're getting there little by little. So I think that's really important, and we have to recognize that purity tests just are not going to get us anywhere. That no matter where we are in the political spectrum, a purity test of you must be all this and all that just doesn't fly. So getting back to this notion of transformation, right? The UU values that we're talking about, right? Transformation is acknowledging the need for ongoing personal and collective spiritual and ethical growth and adaptation to the changing world. This is fundamental to learning from history. We have to adapt, we have to change, we have to grow. And the only way we do that is looking at our pasts and saying, woo, we messed up there, let's fix that. Like, it's okay. I mean, even in our UU faith, how many times have we had people up here talked about some things that were not so nice that our faith tradition has engaged in? I know, Joy, you've shared a lot of those stories, where we were discriminated against people who are Black, women only became ministers in the last bunch of years. So we've made peace with that, and we're working hard. Now, fortunately, we're sort of on the leading edge of that, of many faith traditions, but we still had to wrestle with it. And if we were to have a purity test that said, well, you didn't let women do this in 1952, where would we be? I wouldn't be sitting here. So we have to recognize that these things are going to change, and it takes a slow amount of time to get there. So the goal really here is, how do we embrace the journeys that people are on, allowing them their dignity, the equity issues, right? Helping them achieve redemption and forgiveness and to work to improve. We grapple with our own history, as we already said in the reading, recognizing our role in the genocide of Native Americans, our horrible history of rejecting Jewish refugees during World War II, which led to the current and massively maligned immigration policy that we have now. That current policy, where if somebody steps on our soil and asks for asylum, came out of our horrible behaviors during World War, or pre-World War II and during World War II, when ships of Jews were trying to be saved and they had no place to go. We fought 2 wars, won both times, against the Confederacy and fascism, but we still haven't learned that lesson. I don't know how we do that. I don't have any answers to it, but that is that. Now I'm going to talk about something a little harder. I look at Israel, not the Jewish people, because that's not the point, but the government. And I'm appalled at how they have treated Palestinians. It has been an issue for me since I visited there in 1989, and I watched a friend of my brother's arm get broken simply because he walked in the wrong place. So I feel like the Israeli government has forgotten the lessons of what they experienced, and they're sort of not learning that you don't pass that forward. You stop the cycle. Somebody has to stand up and stop that cycle. And I think back to, where's my mother? I think back to the story my father told me a bunch of years ago, that he had child abuse in his family. His grandfather killed his grandmother in domestic violence. And my father stood up, when he decided to get married to my mom, and he said, "The cycle stops here. I don't want to do this anymore." And I wish I had known that. I don't know if it would have made a difference to me as a little kid, but as an adult, it made me see my father with very different eyes. The behaviors that he engaged in, that if you didn't understand the why, kind of made you feel like, oh, he's being distant. I don't understand why he's distant. Well, because he was protecting us from a rage that he knew came down and was handed down generation to generation. And I love that, that he was willing to do that for us. But that's hard. So anyway, have we withheld redemption from folks? Have we said, I'm not going to forgive you? And I'm not saying that we need to embrace dysfunction and have that in our lives, because that's not okay. What we need to do is to say, I can forgive you, but I can also put a safe boundary around me. I don't need to have that pain in my life right here, right now. That's about us creating a healthy space for ourselves. That's really important. But these are things I struggle with too. Like, how do I forgive somebody who's harmed me? And there's part of me that wants to go, and I know, right, that's not, in the long run, that doesn't help. So I give myself space to bitch and moan, and then I learn to let go, but also make sure my wall stays up and that they don't get to cross that wall. But we have to learn from our past mistakes, just as we, obviously need to do that with others, and we have to do better in that sense. So as we've had our own struggles, but we also have a guidebook, our principles that help us to make peace with some of these past behaviors and help us to interact with others and help us to learn how to love. And we have to strive and move forward to make peace with our history, our past history, whether it's UUs or as Americans or as citizens of this world, all the role that we've played in the subjugation of humans, slavery and otherwise. We're not perfect, and we shouldn't be perfect. We just have to recognize that perfection is the enemy of excellence. And if we pursue improvement and excellence, that helps us to overcome the past histories that we have. So we have to continue to fight those journeys, fight those lessons, but it's a journey. So let's work on that journey together and see what we can do to fix the wrongs of society, whether it's big things or little things. Even if it's a little thing. Edward Everett Hale, right? I don't have to do it all. I have to just do the thing I can do. Just do your thing. Do that thing that makes it work. Amen. Somebody turn the air conditioning on. I'm sweating. All right, number 295, sing out praises for the journey, hence the journey, friends. As Keith passes around the offering basket, I offer you a gentle reminder that this community of faith is supported only by your giving. However, stewardship is more than just financial donations. It's also about donating time and talent along with your treasure to help our church survive and thrive. If you can't write a check, please try to volunteer to make coffee, bring snacks, or serve as an usher, and serve on other committees as needed, helping with worship on occasion, as I'm the worship coordinator. Please donate as you can, and you are able to with your time, talent, and or treasure, because all are needed for us. Now, I forgot to update the address in here. P.O. Box 115 in Glen Carbon, 62034-9998. Or Givelify to make your donations. If you would like to donate your time or talent, there's board members here that you can speak to and let them know that you'd like to help, whatever that might be. Anybody? You got it? Good. Thank you. So join me in our offering prayer. May this offering equip us to inspire love and seek justice. All right, the announcements. First of all, I want to apologize. I had hoped to have some revisions to the Right Relationship Covenant that I sent out to you months ago. And I've just been really busy. I started as department chair, and I have been in department chair mode since I got back from vacation. So I apologize. We will not be talking about that, but I'll address that with the board and about when they want to handle that. So next week, August 17th, Dr. Claudia Hall will be here virtually, and you're the worship associate, so thank you. Nathan is next on the 24th, yay. And then Eden will be back here on the 31st. And I forgot who is going to be Eden's worship associate, but I have the schedule. I'll email people to remind you. Setup, breakdown, community room only. So that room gets broken down. We can leave things up in here? Yeah. Okay. That's right. Okay, August 17th, complete breakdown next week, et cetera, et cetera. So we all know that as we move forward. Yeah, no problem. Congregational meeting after our church today at 11:30. To approve our operating budget. Sorry, they will, even if there is time permitting, we do not have that to discuss today. What else we got? Okay, so committee expansion, hospitality, care, PR, worship, property. Let Eden know if you would like to be added to any one of those committees. that would be awesome. I was going to say something and I don't remember what it was. Oh, we have Alton Pride is coming up. It's the second Saturday in September, so we'll be getting a group together for that. And then I have not sent the money in for Unity Fest, but I'll be doing that next, so with the permission from the board to be able to do that. So that's coming up, so keep that in mind for events that we want to be volunteering for. Anything else? Choir practice will start Sunday the 17th after church. How about that? That's awesome. Yeah. Come on up.
I'm really bad at filling out papers,
That's okay.
getting announcements.
It's been a day.
Places, but you did say a couple of things that I wanted to piggyback on. If you're looking to volunteer, in addition to those other committees, there is also a religious education committee. We're going to be starting back up again with our RE classes weekly in September. So if you are at all interested in that, just let me know. I'll put you on my email list. And basically, I just ask week by week. I'm like, hey, I need teachers. Who's available next week? You know, that kind of thing. And then I'll send you the lesson ahead of time so you have time to look at it. I'll have all the materials. Everything you need will be here ready for you. You just have to show up and, you know, have fun with the kids. The other thing I wanted to say is that we have 2 more Goshen Market meetings. And so if you are interested in helping out with the Goshen Market, we'll still continue to give away children's books. But I think we're going to step back from our donations for Partners for Pets. I will announce here today, though, that the kids raised over $200 to donate. Just with like handmade bracelets that we asked donations, and $200, it was exactly $205. But like they did a really great job with that. So I think we're going to pivot and do something different for the last 2, but we will still have the children's books. So if you're interested in the Goshen Market helping, see me as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah. Just
Men's lunch group, Pump House, Bar and Grill. Look at them. They look so happy down there. Anything else? I know it's a stock photo, but it looks cute. Yeah.
Just everybody, so if you're politically involved, we can be politically involved in church now.
Yes, we can. That's why I did not hold any punches in my sermon today.
Okay, so
That's true. I advocated for a party because it aligns with our values.
okay, I just want to say that for those who didn't, the districts I live in, I have sign-up sheets or petitions to get them on the ballot.
Okay.
So that you'll have a choice.
Okay, so see Denise after service in before our meeting to sign the petitions to get people on the ballot. We need to have representation no matter what, so get the names out there. All right, and choice. Good. All right. That's it? All right, good. So I invite you to join me in reciting the prayer as I extinguish the chalice. The light of truth and meaning cannot be put out. We are keepers of this flame until we meet again. Our closing words are inspired by our ancestors by Leah Durland Jones, which is on Worship Web. For those who came before us, we offer gratitude and thanks. May their memories be a blessing. May we feel surrounded by their love as we go forth from this place, from this time and place. Let us be inspired by their courage, their wisdom, and their dreams. Let us honor them by doing the work of living boldly, loving mightily, and creating heaven on earth. Amen and blessed be. And we'll have Joy's postlude.